Lauren, you're starting it off, right? Okay, just making sure.
All right, welcome everyone. See participants coming in, so I'm going to turn the mic over to Lauren, share my screen, and we'll get started.
Thank you, Paige, and thank you everyone for joining us. Welcome to the webinar, Get to Know CFGA, Grantmaking, Philanthropy, and Community Impact. We're really excited to share a little bit more about the work that we do here at the Community Foundation for Greater Atlanta. Paige, could you go to the next slide, please? So just a quick review of our agenda. We'll start with a very high-level overview of CFGA and our work. Then my colleague Kim will talk about donor advised funds. I will return to talk a little bit about our community impact team and the work that we do. And then my colleague Michael will talk about endowment funds for nonprofits. And then Kim will return to talk about some tips for nonprofits in accessing and being in relationship with the Community Foundation for Greater Atlanta. Next slide, please. So an overview of the Community Foundation for Greater Atlanta. We are a philanthropic entity and intermediary. We have multiple funding mechanisms and ways of supporting both nonprofits and funders across Metro Atlanta. As you can see, our mission is to inspire and lead our region toward equity and shared prosperity for all. And that really underlines and drives all of the work that we do across Metro Atlanta. Everything that we do across our region is in collaboration with our funding and nonprofit partners. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about our work, very high level. Just to get a sense of the scope and size of our organization, we are the largest community foundation in Georgia by asset size, and we manage over 1,000 donor advised funds. We also have millions of dollars that go out in grants and impact investing each year, and the majority of those grants are coming from our donor advised fund holders. And so I will segue that into Kim talking a little bit more about those donor advised funds.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kim Whitaker, and I am a philanthropic advisor with the Community Foundation. Oop, did somebody? Sorry, there was a little feedback there. I'm a philanthropic advisor with the Community Foundation, and my main role at the Community Foundation is to be a source of information for nonprofits and donor advised fund holders. I mostly work with nonprofits to kind of see who's doing what in the community and see if I can make connections between the community and nonprofits and any fund holders who might be interested in your services. Next slide, please. So the Community Foundation has a number of different funds that we house and we manage. The biggest source or the biggest pot of money that we manage is the donor advised funds, and those are individual funds that people open to support their charitable giving. We also house a lot of scholarship funds. Some of those are funds that we have that we just we have say as to who gets them. Some of it is individual scholarship funds that people set up for a memorial or just want to give back to their high school or something like that. We also have permanent funds, and these are funds that were set up by someone specifically for a specific organization or a specific cause. For example, there was a gentleman who passed away a number of years ago who left a fund to support specific animal rescue organizations. So we manage those funds. We also we're a supporting organization for a number of startup nonprofits. It's a little bit of an incubator. We just do their back office for them until they're ready to launch. And then we also have private foundation services. We have a few family foundations that are housed underneath us, and we provide things like grant cycles and things like that for them. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to give a brief overview of the DAFs and what DAFs are. We had a previous webinar, we had it last week and the week before, that kind of went over more in detail how DAFs work and so forth. If you didn't get to see that one, there will be a link to that in the follow-up email that comes after this presentation. But the big thing with DAFs is the motivation for why people use DAFs. The biggest thing is there are tax advantages. A lot of people, it makes tax time easier. If people put money in a DAF, they can do their charitable giving throughout the year, and then they only have to deal with one tax receipt. And then there's also, if they're doing their taxes, they can just set aside whatever amount of money they need to offset their tax burden, and throughout the year give the money to wherever they want. They're not kind of they don't have to scramble at the end of the year to support charities that they don't really know much about. They can spend a little more time thinking about it. The other thing with DAFs, people can remain anonymous. You don't have to have your name on the DAF. It doesn't have to be the Kim Whitaker DAF. It can be the 123 Fund. There's also, we provide services to DAF holders where we make recommendations for nonprofits. That's part of my job, is to meet with them and do the matchmaking on that part. It's also a great way to engage the next generation of donors. We have a lot of funds that they're on their third, fourth, and we actually have one fund it's on their fifth generation of grant makers. And they basically, families use it to support causes they like and to teach the younger generations about how to give and philanthropy and so forth. Next slide. So the DAF by the numbers, we have roughly 735 DAF accounts at the Community Foundation. These are held by individuals, corporations, foundations, community groups, and the number does fluctuate. But basically, there's about 1,200 people that manage these funds. Some funds have just one person that's in charge, but a lot of them, if it's a family, there'll be multiple people that make decisions and so forth. In 2025, about 201 million was given out of these DAF funds, with roughly about 7,105 grants. Our average DAF gift was about $28,000, but they tend to be more in the $5,000 to $10,000 range. We primarily focus on Georgia and Metro Atlanta, but we've been around for 75 years, and a lot of our older DAF holders have scattered across the country, so we pretty much give in just about every state. So the types of organizations, we give to any kind of organization. We are agnostic. We do not have any we don't have any limits as to where you can give and where you can't give. If you're a DAF holder and you have an interest in a cause, we will support it. Most DAF holders have specific information or specific areas they're interested in. We have, a lot of the DAF holders, they basically save their funds for certain organizations that they set aside every year. They give to their alma mater, they give to the High Museum, they give to the Humane Society or things like that. And they also do tend to follow society trends. So right now we have a lot of DAF holders focused on food and hunger and housing. And then if disaster relief becomes a thing, if there's some type of natural disaster, they do tend to look at that as well. With the DAF holders, while we have 735 DAF accounts, at least half of those we really don't have a lot of interaction with. They do their own thing, they have their own priorities, and they just log into their account and give money away. There are some that ask for our recommendations, and so we try to tailor lists of organizations that we recommend to them whenever they ask for it. Next slide, please. So to connect with the DAF holders, it's not the easiest nut to crack, but we do try very hard to share information with them as much as possible. My main duty at the Community Foundation is to be the central contact point and to share nonprofit information. I meet with nonprofits all the time, and I try to gather information, and I'm always interested in talking to new organizations. If you're interested in speaking with me or you have something you want to share, you can always find me on the website. I'm right kind of towards the top. And send me an email and send me a little information about your organization, and I'd love to chat. There is not a guarantee that there's going to be a match. We really don't have much say, but we just try to keep a list going and keep people in mind and keep organizations in mind that might fit. Also, if you share information with us, if you have something coming up, not necessarily events. We don't really sponsor events, and we get invited to so many events that we don't go to as many as we would like, but there's just not enough time in the day. And also with DAF holders, it's really important to steward these donors as major gift donors. These are, if you get a DAF gift from us or from any DAF holder, always remember that these are major gift prospects. They are your donors. I am not the donor. The fund that comes from that is the donor. So make sure when you get a gift, you steward them and you treat them just like any other donor. If you get a gift from us and it's an anonymous gift, you're welcome to send us information and we will share it with the donor. Some donors, once they get to know you, they don't mind sharing their information if they're normally anonymous, but some will never come out of their anonymous status with you. It's also a good idea to talk to other nonprofits and see see who's had similar luck, or had luck with similar organizations and similar DAF holders. Also, it's always good to keep up with professional advisors, financial advisors, and things like that. They are a great source of DAF gifts. Next slide, please. So what our DAF holders are looking for, I mentioned, if you receive a DAF, always steward the donor. They want to be stewarded just like any other donor that just donates through your website or what have you. Some of our donors ask for reports. It doesn't happen often, but if they ask for a report, please submit it on time. They don't like it when they ask for something and they don't get it. You might not get a second gift without it. Everybody checks out websites. And I know that nonprofits, sometimes it's hard to get a really nice fancy website, but it doesn't have to be fancy. It just has to be accurate. Always have your EIN on your website. Those are always looked at. Board lists, if you can put it on there, put your board list on there, any pertinent information, and make sure it's up to date. The other thing that a number of DAF holders have mentioned, they don't want to see 50 pictures of the executive director. They want to see, if you're going to have pictures, have it of your work, not the people not just one person. If you haven't done so already, keep your candid profile updated and so forth. Also, don't create programs that you're not qualified to run just for the money. They really look at organizations that are just chasing the money. If you haven't mastered whatever it is you've started out with, don't go chasing money for a new program. And also collaborate with other nonprofits. Our donors love to see organizations that work together. There's a couple of organizations that are doing a lot with Kids Hunger, and they're all working really well together, and they're not competing for funds. They're working together to make the most of the funds that they have. Next slide. It's on to Lauren.
Thanks, Kim. I hear an echo, Kim. You might need to mute.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. Thank you. I apologize. Paige, could you actually keep it on that side for one moment? Thank you. And I apologize to all. I did not mention at the top that our chat is disabled, but you're welcome to put any questions that you have as we go in the Q&A, and we'll get to all those questions at the end of the presentation as well. So I will be talking about our community impact work. Our community impact team manages our competitive grant making. So those are the open cycles, invitation only, and responsive grants. We manage funds from a variety of sources, including our discretionary funds, endowed funds, and funds that come from our partners as well. The majority of our funds do have established purposes, so we follow the donor intent and purpose of those funds, and then our strategic priorities as well to make grant decisions. Next slide, please. So this is a list of our current strategic priorities for this year. We did want to note that we evaluate our strategic priorities each year, and they change and shift, sometimes minor tweaks, and sometimes we do make major changes. Those decisions are based on both internal and external circumstances, what we see happening in the community, and also what's happening here at the foundation. So for this year, our current strategic grant making priorities on the community team are housing and neighborhoods, arts, culture, and creative enterprises, and then responses to changes in federal funding and policies that have been happening over the last couple of years that are significantly, of course, impacting the nonprofits that we work with. Of course, these priorities do not include all of our work. We have other priorities that are not listed here, and lots of other work that's happening in addition. These are just our highest level priorities currently. Next slide, please. So to get into contact with our team, the best way is to reach out to grants@cfgreateratlanta.org and to send a link to your website, as much information as you can about the work that you're doing, and then our team will reach out to the appropriate staff person and connect you with them. Sometimes we are just collecting information and we'll keep you in mind. Sometimes we will schedule a meeting to learn a little bit more about your work. And then, of course, if you're already connected with us, just make sure that you're keeping us updated on the challenges that your organization is facing, as well as your successes and your wins. We love to hear about those too. And that keeps you kind of top of mind as we have different funding opportunities that come up. For current and upcoming grant applications and open cycles, those are always listed at cfgreateratlanta.org/grant opportunities. We also put those out in our nonprofit news email digest, which you can sign up for on our website. Those are regular emails that go out. And when we have new open grant applications, that's the first place that we announce those opportunities. And then we also post all of those opportunities on our social media channels as well. So I will turn it over to Michael to talk a little bit more about our endowment funds.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Taylor. I am a senior philanthropic associate here at the Community Foundation, and I've been with the organization 3 years now as of July. Next slide, please. I'll be talking a little bit about our endowment funds for nonprofits. These are permanent funds and can not be withdrawn by the organization. The assets are invested in the Community Foundation's investment pool, and they make distributions once a year. And any distribution not taken is reinvested back into the fund for long-term stability and growth. And now, next slide, I would like to just share a little bit of the benefits and the motivations. I really get excited about these funds whenever I'm able to work with a nonprofit because they really allow us to focus on the mission of the organization and supervising the investment for that long-term stability. When the federal funding freezes came down, a lot of organizations were really scrambling because they haven't diversified and did different things to secure other funding streams. And the nonprofit funds really allow our partners to do that. They're very easy and efficient whenever we're opening those funds. And it really just ensures that the organization has that endowment type function and structure. And it really does serve as a true endowment. And what I mean by that is that stability is there. You have that yearly payout, but more importantly, this is a permanent fund in which the principal will remain protected. So when you have those payouts every year, again, you know next year will happen again because that principal balance is not touched. And it increases the organization's fundraising flexibility, excuse me. It allows them to sell non-cash gifts, other contributions such as property. Real estate is a huge area that individuals like to give through. And nonprofit funds will allow you to accept those types of gifts. If you would like any more information on this type of fund, you can contact myself or my manager, Kim Spear. We would love to talk to you more about this fund and if we could help you get it established. Thank you, Lauren and Ken.
So besides grant making, we have a lot of other work we do that probably gets a little bit, it's a little less formalized. We do attend a lot of community events and performances. While I mentioned that we don't go to events, we don't really go to the fundraising events, but we do go to a lot of collaboration events and so forth. We meet with a lot of different nonprofits that are working together and so forth. We do try to go on site visits as much as we can. It's a lot easier to see, people's work if it's in person. Timing wise, it can be a little bit hard. We can't always visit every single nonprofit, but we do try very hard to get out in the community with that. We love making connections and introducing nonprofits to other nonprofits that are doing work together. We like to make introductions. We also know who's doing similar things and who's had good luck with things. And also, if we hear of any funding opportunities not from us, we're always happy to share. I kind of keep a running list in my head, and every time I talk to a nonprofit, if I think of anything else, I'll happily share it with them. We have a lot of great speakers. Tim Bresnahan is out and about in the community a lot, and he's kind of an expert on quite a few different things like, DAFs and taxes and just community foundations in general. And we're always open to technical assistance and capacity building. We have a pretty strong team of people that can help with different areas or different parts of that area. Next slide, please. So we have a few takeaways for everyone, and then we're going to open it up to questions. If you do have any questions, there's a Q&A section in this presentation, and feel free to drop any questions in there. So there's not a magic list of DAF grantees. We don't publish a list, and there's not a magic list of organizations. We try to keep up with every organization we can. We don't have preferred nonprofits. We try to keep it open to whatever's equitable, whatever's fair, and whoever's doing great work. Every DAF grant is a major donor. That is somebody that should be in your major gifts portfolio. Steward them like a major gift donor. Most of our fund holders have their own priorities and agendas, but we're happy to encourage them to look in other directions as well. We do generally, when we talk to DAF holders, we try very, very hard to steer them towards general operating. We've all worked in fundraising. We all know what the nonprofit world is like, and we know general operating is the hardest to get. So we always try to steer them in that direction, but we do try to keep an eye out on different projects that maybe it's a specific need or serves a specific area that other donors might be interested in. Last slide. So the best ways to connect with us and see what's going on in our world is follow us on the socials. You can also scan this QR code, and that'll take us to your website or to our website where you can sign up for our newsletter. I believe Lauren mentioned that earlier, that we publish any open grant cycles in there and so forth. And we also sometimes have a grants roundup for other organizations that have grant funding as well. So I am going to open it up to questions. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to start with Israel has a question. Who should we send letters messaging to for anonymous donors? If you'd like, you can send that to me, Kim Whitaker, and I can make sure it gets along to the correct person. If you have talked to a philanthropic advisor, some of the funds are managed by, or most of the funds are managed by, from our side, by a specific philanthropic advisor, Amanda, Daniel, and Matthew. If you have a relationship with them, you can send it their way too, but I'm always happy to send it along. Let's see. There's a question about, we are a fiscally sponsored organization. Are there other considerations or best practices for organizations operating under a fiscal sponsor? Michael, is that one you can answer? I'm not as familiar with that.
Kim, I can take that from our team. I'm not sure how that affects eligibility for DAF grants, but I know for our team, it's really dependent on the grant cycle. We have some grant cycles that are open to fiscally sponsored organizations and some that aren't. So we typically will partner with nonprofits in the same way, but we do have some funds that would not be available just based on the constraints of those funds.
And on the donor advised fund side, we will be able to make grants. We will just have to make sure that the donor is okay with listing the sponsor as opposed to the organization that they're looking to support. And if that is the case, we would just earmark it and make sure that the funds are designated for that organization.
Okay, the next question I think is for Lauren. It says, how do we connect with someone for capacity building coaching?
Yeah, the best way is to send an email to grants at cfgreateratlanta.org. We do have a few different capacity building programs. They are a little bit different than they were prior to COVID, but we're happy to talk a little bit further about what that looks like right now and what your organizational needs are.
All right, Sarah posted, she said, we're on the funding side, but I wanted to know how can I learn more, about making connections. We want to focus on serving low-income seniors, and we'll have a convening of folks in September, and it would be nice if we could connect with nonprofits that are doing this work. If you send me this information, I'm happy to share it with the other senior organizations that I've talked to. I've talked to a few recently, and I'm happy to share this information. Georgia Center for Nonprofits is also a good resource for this. Association of Fundraising Professionals, AFP, that's a great way to meet other people working in the nonprofit world and development. It's a great place to build some community. You can go to their website, I think it's afpatlanta.org, and check out when they have different meetings and so forth. Here's another one. Let's see. Thanks for sharing this information, everyone. You're welcome. This is an anonymous person. My question, do nonprofits need to complete an organizational profile to be considered for funding with the Community Foundation? And will there be open events in the future for organizations to meet CFGA staff and partners? As far as completing an organizational profile, we don't really have, you can sign up for an account and you will get our newsletter and so forth. Unless you're applying for a grant, there really isn't that much of an organizational profile. We really do rely heavily on the Candid profiles. And somebody had asked earlier, what is Candid? And it's candid.org if you haven't looked at it yet. It's pretty much the source of truth for all nonprofits. They track everybody's 990 and so forth. And we use it for Charity Check to verify that organizations have their business license and they're approved by the IRS and they're in good standing. And as far as open events in the future, for organizations to meet with us, we don't have anything planned at the moment. That is something that could potentially happen after the first year, but I'm not aware of anything at this time.
And
So
I
let's
just
see.
would chime in and say we will be sending a survey out at the end of this webinar and a follow-up email. So these are great questions. And if we don't have something that exists today, we welcome your ideas for what you would like to see in the future for us as a team to consider.
Okay. And I think, Lauren, did you have more to add on that?
No, I would just say we do not have the organizational profile in the way that we did kind of prior to COVID. We just do things a little bit differently, but please do send your information over and keep us updated on your work.
Next one. Do you all provide development assistance to learn how to make the most of connecting with CFGA? We don't really have a program that would be specific for that. I mean, we're happy to talk to you and give you some pointers, but we don't really do development coaching in that respect. I mean, we'll happily talk to you and give you some pointers, but we don't have, there's no real specific, coaching as to how to get involved. Let's see. And another person asked, what acknowledgments do you all send to donors? We send our own letters with thanks, but would hope not to send double messaging. Should we only send thank you messages versus tax acknowledgments? If it's from a DAF, you cannot send a tax acknowledgement. They already get the tax letter from us. But definitely send thank yous, especially for the DAF side of the house. If you send it our way, we send whatever you create to them. We don't send a thank you note on your behalf. That's for you to do. You steward them as your donor, as you would any other donor. Let's see. Next one. Someone at Pearl asked, are historical churches over 100 years old allowed to apply for funding for building upgrades? And then there's somebody else who also asked, do churches qualify for any of these grants? If you are a 501c3 nonprofit, you are eligible for grants. That being said, we do have some DAF holders who are interested in historic preservation, which when I saw the 100-year-old church, there are some DAF holders that are interested in supporting historic preservation. but they're not as many as you would think. And we don't really have, we rarely have open grant cycles for building upgrades and so forth. One suggestion I have for the historical churches is talk to South Face. There's an organization in the area that they provide energy audits and so forth that is really, really helpful for nonprofits, especially with old buildings. And they can do kind of an assessment of all your systems and see where changes can be made to help with your energy efficiency and your more importantly your utility bills. And again, churches are do qualify for funding. We just DAF holders in general tend to have their own church that they support. So we don't necessarily make recommendations about churches or to DAF holders about churches, but you never know. Sometimes they'll ask. And Rachel Stanley had dropped in here that AFP has a conference next week on the 26th. So, any other questions?
Kim, real quick, I wanted to add about churches, that even if they don't have that formal 501(c)(3) tax exemption status, a lot of time churches do qualify for DAF grants, as long as they can demonstrate and verify that they are, operating as a public charity, and have hours of worship. Then they can receive grants even if they don't have the official 501(c)(3) determination.
All right, I think we have two other questions that are going to be a Lauren thing. This first question from an anonymous person, are you reviewing grant eligibility requirements so that mid to large size nonprofits have a chance to apply? Some don't qualify because of budget size. I'll just speak up real quick on the DAF side of the house. The budget size depends on the DAF holder. Some of them are perfectly fine with large organizations, some are not. So that's decided by the DAF side. Lauren, do you want to answer the rest of that?
Yeah, I would say it's pretty similar for community impact work as well. We have some funds that are specifically geared towards different budget sizes. It's fairly rare with our funds, but we do have some that are for specific budget sizes, and that goes both ways. Some require a certain number of staff or a certain budget amount, and some require the opposite and don't want organizations to be over a certain size. So it really kind of varies according to the different grant cycles that we manage. But if you would like to have further conversation about your specific organization and what you're saying, we would love to have further conversation as well. And you can reach out to that grants@cfgreateratlanta.org email to have that conversation.
Someone else just posted, just clarifying that education and workforce development are not priorities. Actually, both of those are big priorities for our DAF holders. A lot of them like to fund those, and I'm gonna let Lauren chime in on that as well.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for this question, because it's important to note that the priorities that we listed are not the only priorities across our organization. Those are kind of our three high-level overarching priorities, but we have lots of funds and funders and donor advised fund holders that care very much about education and workforce development. So we are still doing work in both of those spaces. They are just not high-level organizational priorities for this year.
All right. Susan Allison posted a reply to Sarah that she's going to be facilitating a roundtable for grant writers at the AFP conference next week, and she'd be happy to have you participate. So contact Susan Allison at Purpose Possible if you're interested. All right. Any other questions? I think we've reached the end. Timothy Buchanan said thank you. So thank you, Timothy. We're happy you're here. There will be a survey that's going to come out with the links to this and with any resources we have that we can share. If you want to reach out and set up some time to talk, I'd be happy to talk to you. Just keep in mind, after these, I usually end up with about 40 or 50 emails, and it might take me a minute to get back to you. So thank you all for joining us.
Thank you all so much, and be on the lookout for the recap email with our recording.